Welcome to Integration Nation for Allison Sullivan and Associates Integrative Mental Health Practice. I'm Dee Daniels, and in beautiful downtown Fredericksburg, Virginia, we are sitting in Allison's office. Allison, I love being in your office. We're here in this gorgeous historic city. We get to see the train go by.
We get to hear the train.
We get to hear the train. It's like right outside the window. It's such a beautiful place. And I know you always bring in elements, even on the website, you can see that you bring in elements from the outside and make it all very integrative. It is truly integrative around here.
Yes, we integrated in the website. We integrated pictures of the actual community that we are in, the building, the block. One of the pictures on our workshop page, actually the picture associated with the mindfulness workshop, is a sculpture art installation by fredericksburgarts.com right around the corner. So check it out, because if you haven't been to our website and our workshop page, it's a really cool sculpture of people in a circle. And we did that because we wanted the website to really reflect actually who we are and where we are. So we took most of the pictures in the actual building that we're in.
We want to thank our sponsor, Dragonfly. My goodness.
Absolutely. DragonflyYogaFred.com is their amazing website featuring all kinds of incredible photography by Aaron Spicer, a local photographer, really highlighting the beautiful studio and the incredible instructors there. It is another business in town that really does meet you where you are in your yoga practice in a serious, skillful, mindful way, while also promoting a sense of close-knit community. Not only do they have, I think, in excess of 50 classes per week.
Wow.
From times ranging from 5:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night, which, you know what, let's be honest, that hits every marker no matter what your schedule is. They have weekend classes, early morning, afternoon, evening. They have workshops several times a month at least. They do things in the community. They are everywhere. And the workshops that they have are so expansive, anything from specific aspects of yoga practice to things like infant massage and everything in between.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yes. So definitely check out DragonflyYogaFred.com and mention that you heard about them on our podcast.
It really is a place of growth, and we love that Dragonfly has jumped on board to partner with us. And I just know that it really rings true when we talk about things like we're going to talk about in this episode, talking about this growth mindset. Is it versus a fixed mindset? Is it?
Well, I think tends to be two camps, a growth mindset or more of a fixed mindset. So what I'm hoping to do for people today is to kind of look at that from a place of how does that show up in relationships and what is the impact of that, and how do we begin to move more towards what we want and away from what is not working for us in relationship with these two things. The initial research in these areas was done in education, and there's all kinds of really cool studies that have been done that show that really poor performing school systems who have adopted more of a growth mindset approach have had stunning results within a 1-year time frame. And so that was really the birthplace of this kind of notion, and it has expanded into all kinds of organizations and relationships.
Yeah, I can see where it would cross all of those categories, and how you can, yet again, use these things as a great tool in your toolbox. A
great tool. So I started thinking about this. I did a corporate workshop about this in last spring, and I posted some in our social media about this. When I think about growth mindsets, I think about it usually from some kind of snapshot of my garden.
Oh, okay.
Because plants, I think, are a powerful example of a growth mindset. They remind us about process, imperfection, adaptation, diversity, and resiliency. And each of those adjectives really describe aspects of having a growth mindset. So maybe we should start by defining them. What do you think?
I think it's a fantastic idea, and I'm already like sitting in the garden, so I'm ready to go.
Are you sitting cross-legged?
I am a little bit.
Crisscross applesauce?
Yes, because like I'm picturing this now, so here I am. I'm visualizing this garden. I love it.
Okay, so let's talk about both of these, like I mentioned earlier, in the context of a relationship. Someone who has a fixed mindset in general might feel like they are who they are. They're born with a certain set level. That's really important. A certain set level of talent, intelligence, interests. And if you have a fixed mindset, you're more likely to seek out experiences and opportunities that reflect where your strengths are. You really are shying away on a regular basis from anything that you don't feel you are really good at. So people who have a fixed mindset believe that talent, not effort, is the source of success, that you either have it or you don't. If you don't have it, it's best to minimize opportunities to show that you don't have it.
It's like a filter. It's the filter you're using.
It actually makes me feel a little bit of claustrophobia when I think about it,
I
because
see that, yeah.
it's very limiting, and it's very static. So a growth mindset, as I'm sure all of the listeners can imagine, is centered more around an idea of talent and intelligence can be developed through hard work and dedication. So a growth mindset is going to fuel learning. It's going to increase enjoyment of learning. And people with a growth mindset tend to seek out situations to experiment with, to play with, and to explore, not really looking exclusively for experiences that are going to showcase competence. They just want to try and see what happens, explore things, open up to.
Okay with getting comfortable with the new beginnings, or getting comfortable with the awkwardness and
Yes, the awkwardness of new beginning, and looking at the process, not the outcome. Ooh, this looks interesting. Let me see what happens if I try this. Oh, I've always wanted to do this. Let's go explore. That's more indicative of a growth mindset.
also reminds me of when you're in the kitchen cooking.
Yes.
And you're that person who maybe thinks you always like, oh, okay, well, I always follow this recipe and I always do it this way, or I always just follow recipes. I don't try anything new, or because maybe it's going to go wrong and I don't want to do that.
Maybe it's going to go wrong. And if it goes wrong, here's a key piece of a fixed mindset. If it goes wrong, that's evidence of my incompetence. That's evidence of my inadequacy. And everyone's going to see it. So I just have to stick to what I know.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
And eventually that leads to a really narrow world that can seem really threatening.
And limiting. Yeah.
Limiting. Okay. So we need to talk about how do these mindsets show up in relationships? Well, things that make you go,
It's true. So are we starting off with the fixed mindset?
Let's do it.
Okay.
So as I think people can expect, a fixed mindset in a relationship is going to be someone who is going to tend to see a relationship as either good or bad. It just is. And I am who I am in this relationship, so we are not going to have conflict. I'm going to shy away from conflict. I'm going to overlook it. I'm just not going to do it because we each are who we are. That is what it is. So what's the point?
Right.
It also impairs honesty and communication because if people feel like a conversation is going to highlight their flaws or things that they're not talented in, then they're not going to want to deal with it.
You're going to avoid that.
You're going to avoid that. You're going to shy away from it. It could trigger defensiveness. And we know there's reams of data now in behavioral health that talks about defensiveness as being a real roadblock in developing emotional intimacy in relationships. It really does separate us from what we want the most, which is honest connection with people. So if you have a mindset that says, I either can do this or I can't, and someone you're in a relationship with is saying, well, let's talk about this, and it's related to something you think you can't do, you're not going to want to do that.
And I think too, when we get in these positions where it's like, you're in this fixed mindset and you drop that phrase a lot that you mentioned earlier. This is who I am. This is how I am.
Take it or leave it.
This is how I am.
Yes.
It's very aggressive and
Yes.
limiting. And I can understand where there is a false sense of safety or security in this is what I know, this is what I am. Don't make me go outside that.
Yes. So I'm glad you brought up that point, because I think that can get confusing for people. So maybe a way for this to feel more accessible to people who maybe have found themselves identifying with a fixed mindset is to use a both and approach and say, I am who I am, and it's safe to explore these things and learn, because here's what we also know. Neuroplasticity is real. And neuroplasticity is just a big word that says our brains change. We used to think, and medical schools used to teach, that your brain was your brain. That was it. It was a very fixed mindset approach. We now have the science that supports that our brains are dynamic. They are responding and adapting and developing based on the environment and the experiences that we are in. So there is actually brain science that supports the effectiveness of moving towards a growth mindset, because your brain can actually accommodate that.
So the next time someone says to you, I am who I am and this is just how I am, you follow that up with brain science says that's not true.
Brain science says you are who you are, and that's always changing.
Exactly.
It's always changing. So it's not about you're not allowed to be who you are. It's about this is a snapshot. We're kind of more typically in a snapshot. This is a snapshot of who I am. And I'll be different down the road as I incorporate experiences and understanding into my life.
So also in this fixed mindset in a relationship and how this plays out and shows up in a relationship, you talk about striving for this unattainable standard.
Yes, it's kind of a cutoff too, because people want to just identify with their strengths and create an idealized self with their strengths. Like, we're not going to look at anything else. We're just going to stay really, literally fixated on the strengths. And then that is going to be who I am, that kind of idealized. And this is who my partner's going to be. My partner is going to be their set of strengths, nothing else. So you can also see another dynamic of how that will impair communication, because when people are so much more than their strengths on any given day, we're a whole bunch of things. And so if you're only allowed to be a certain set of strengths, then that's not going to work.
No, and you're not going to want to talk about those, or one person in the relationship may not want to talk about those things because we don't talk about those things.
We don't bring those up.
Yeah.
We don't bring those up. And so it also kind of disconnects in relationships, because if your partner wants to do things or try things that someone with a fixed mindset doesn't feel they're talented in or able to do, they're not going to want to do that. So it creates these wedges between people that don't necessarily need to be there.
Well, that all sounds very closed off. So let's see what the other side looks like. A growth mindset looks very different.
A growth mindset understands that conflict just is, so let's learn in it. What can we learn about ourselves and each other in this conflict? How can we learn? In the episode, we talked about meeting yourself where you are. So a growth mindset in a relationship would be, how can we meet each other and ourselves in this a little more inclusively? How can we hold more space for ourselves and each other? Conflict is the way we learn how to do that. Of course, I'm not talking about conflict that is abusive.
Right.
I'm talking about just your ordinary conflict when there's a clash of instincts or priorities or even moods.
Which happens a lot in relationships. It just does.
It just does. And it's not an indicator that something's wrong. It's an opportunity to discover more. I think that, I mean, we could probably end the podcast there. That's the essence of a growth mindset.
Right.
Is what are you seeing when something pops up? Oh, this is evidence something is wrong. Or this is evidence that there's something here to explore. We're about to discover something. We're in something that we're going to learn about. That's the essence of it. Okay, so in that spirit and extending the garden analogy, it's kind of people with a growth mindset and relationship understand that conflict is analogous to pruning a plant. When you cut back a plant, it blooms more expansively and beautifully. It's also about understanding that challenging each other is loving, and challenging each other to become more, to explore potential, to move out of comfort zones becomes the norm in the relationship.
Right.
It's not something to be shied away from. It's not something to be seen as evidence of inadequacy. It's something that is just a cultural norm in the relationship.
It's interesting when you were talking about pruning the plant and how that can move into challenging and how that's a good thing. That we've got that. Sometimes we all come at that mindset with ooh, this might hurt. So, and you do shy away. Like your first reaction is to be protective of yourself.
Yes.
And if you kind of just get back past that initial kind of moment of like, this is going to be too hot, or this is going to be too something.
Yes. And it's the why underneath. I mean, I wrote about this in a little different way in the very first blog I wrote, the 5-minute sweaty conversation that no one wants to have.
Love that blog.
So this is going to be uncomfortable, and that is evidence I'm growing and learning. It's purposeful pain. It's pain with a purpose. So that relationship to pain shifts because it's not about the feeling state. It's about what's the larger why. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm going to be learning something. Oh, I'm going to be exploring something. Oh, I'm doing this in support of a higher goal in the relationship, which is more honesty, more openness, more inclusivity, more empathy.
I recently had one of those 10-minute sweaty conversations. And I thought of you as I'm getting ready to have it because you've set up this wonderful picture, to be able to do it. And I recognized some feelings I had, physical feelings I had going in, and it really is that initial, you do start to sweat and you do start to have some heart palpitation and you do have that moment of where I could just run away and not have this conversation and that would be so much easier.
Yes.
But of course, I was so glad after that I did.
Yes. And I think, we talked about this a little bit in the Golden Ticket Self-Acceptance episode when we talked about that as a companion to the empathy episode. This might be a companion to the self-acceptance episode in that, you need to meet yourself in that sweatiness and normalize that. It's how you're meeting yourself. So someone with a fixed mindset would perceive that as,
danger,
move away from this. Someone with a growth mindset might be more like, okay, this is uncomfortable for me because I'm uncertain of what's going to happen. So I'm just going to try it. I'm going to stick my toe in. Mm-hmm. I can take care of myself through this. I'm going to stick my toe in because I want to learn how to do this. I want to discover this with my partner. So I'm going to be able to manage the sensations in my body in support of what else I want.
I love that because you get that initial physical reaction to those uncomfortable moments. And if you just sit in it for a minute,
yes,
they do start to ease up.
And remember your why.
Mm-hmm.
Remember your why. Okay, so it also, when we talked about in the fixed mindset, we talked about being closed off to doing things that your partner might enjoy. If you feel insecure, a growth mindset is more open to trying things with their partner, even if they're not going to excel. So the thing that comes to mind when I think about this is, I know when people love when I share personal stories. So here's a good one.
Are you going to say anything about your husband doing yoga?
No, but there's so many of those good
Because
stories.
I've heard those stories too, and I'm already going to those stories.
No.
Like I'm like, yeah,
This is not. This is Allison Goes Skiing.
love it.
So I'm a water person. I'll try virtually anything in the water, and I'm at home in the water, and I've come to fully understand that after I went skiing a few years ago for the first time in my life. So I'm 51, almost 52, and I think I went skiing for the first time. It had to be when I was 48. My dear husband was like, "What? You've never been skiing? Yeah, let's go." So we went and we took the lesson. So I was that person in the lesson. I was that person that everybody else in the group lesson was like, will she just get it?
Stop asking questions.
We want to get to the slope.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
She's holding us back.
Yeah.
I was that person. There was something about being on that cold, hard ground that seemed really threatening to me. I didn't feel like it could absorb my imperfection in
Yeah.
a way that was safe.
I get it.
So I stayed on, I stayed with the 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. They were like 5-year-olds on snowboards whizzing by me as I was trying to like just like slightly move centimeters ahead of me. My husband's whizzing around. He's doing his own thing. The instructor had to let the class go ahead of me to the ski lift because I was such a situation. So
We're gonna go ahead and send the class ahead,
yes.
and we're gonna
you
stay
all
back
go ahead.
here.
You all look like you're good. I'm gonna stay
Yeah.
back with her and help her get to the ski lift. That was absolutely who I was. So, if I had a fixed mindset about that I would have abandoned that at the first indication something was going wrong. But I stayed in it. I'm not sure I'm going to go skiing again.
Yeah.
But now I know I tried it.
Exactly.
And I may be open to trying it again. But I allowed myself to be in that mess. And we have a running joke now about me looking like a pterodactyl when I ski. So that's a growth mindset. My husband was open to going to ski, and he's a competent skier. Me, not so much, but I was willing to try.
And also, the instructor there said you couldn't come back anymore. By the way, just so you know, just they don't have enough time to. No, I'm kidding.
You may no longer. They actually have a picture of me behind the counter. If this woman shows up, all the group classes are full.
Shut the door.
Don't let her in.
We are closed.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the impact of these mindsets on a relationship.
All right, so I think people are getting the gist. If a fixed mindset is really going to degrade intimacy,
Yeah.
it's going to impact people's satisfaction, and it's going to increase security, and it's going to feel inauthentic after a while. It's going to start to feel like I can't be who I am. I have to be this other person. I have to only be this. I can't stretch out and explore. And that's not what we want in our relationships. And that's usually when a couple will show up at our office when they're at that place. So that begs the question then for people, how do I move towards more of a growth mindset?
Right.
Well, I think the first thing is self-inquiry. Be honest about where in your life you may be operating from a fixed mindset and where you're already kind of maybe in the neighborhood of a growth mindset, and just start to be honest with yourself about where you are. And then start to examine your beliefs. Why do I believe this way? What makes me think that that it has to be this way? What's the worst that can happen if I end up looking like a pterodactyl on
Right.
the ski slope? And then what are the results of this belief in my life? Is this belief system I'm operating from, that I am who I am, and I'm riding that out, how's that working for me?
Yeah, that's powerful.
How is that working for me? Because if it's not working for me, I might want to be open to change. And so that also leads to one of the other aspects of this is to get support. Mm-hmm. Go to a therapist. Start reading some books about what a growth mindset is. Start interacting with just some material around that. Read a blog or two about what a growth mindset is. And expand your emotional intelligence.
That's a big one.
That I think I could recommend regardless of the situation. And Well, one of our episodes in season 2, The Lowdown on Letdown, is all about emotional intelligence and how vital that is in all aspects of mental health and wellness. And so really expanding your emotional intelligence helps you to deal with your insecurities and the things that you don't feel really competent in, and to start to feel more okay in that.
I love that episode. And when you hear the words emotional intelligence, you might be thinking to yourself, wait, what exactly does that mean? That's about identifying and knowing more specifically what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and not boxing that in.
Yes, it's really a two-part thing. It's first emotional literacy. What am I feeling? Let me accurately label it. And then it's how do I manage those feelings? What am I going to do with those feelings instead of allowing those to manage you? It's about being in partnership with your emotional life.
You ready for Q&A?
I'm ready for Q&A. I've got a comment.
I know you do. I'm ready for it. Give it to me.
So this is the comment I wanted to share on this episode. I'm getting some comments about people enjoying the podcast because they think we're funny.
Well, one of us is funny. The other is a pterodactyl. I'm just saying, call it what it is. Let's just...
Yeah, so I thought I would share
That's
that
very
one.
sweet.
Isn't that great feedback?
That is wonderful
You
feedback.
and Dee are funny.
I appreciate that.
I
That's
think we're
very
funny.
sweet. We are funny.
I mean, oftentimes I'm the only one in my household who thinks I'm funny, but that's enough.
Ditto, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. What I do want to say from that, though, in all honesty, is that we have a great time doing this show.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we have a wonderful time talking about these things, and a lot of preparation going into each episode about how we should talk about things, and then we get in the conversation, and it's a very natural flow, and we share personal stories, and really do hope that lands in a place where it is inspiring, and it is comforting, also educational, all of those things.
All of those things. And, that's the other part of being funny that people are commenting on is saying you and Dee seem so at ease doing this. And I think that speaks to the preparation and the passion for doing this, the preparation of, how do we want to present this topic in a way that connects with people, and what topics do we want to talk about, because what are important to our listeners.
Yeah, it's huge, and it means a lot that people are feeling what we're putting out there.
Yes, so thank you everyone for taking the time to comment on that, and please continue to give us feedback on what you like. And if you really do like what you hear, please consider leaving a 5-star rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast. Keep telling us your comments. Keep bringing in questions. We are always open to topics that you're interested in, and to continue in the spirit of a growth mindset, adapting and integrating and learning based on the feedback that we get from you, because we are in a growth relationship with each of you. Okay, so in the spirit of integrative extras, I want to share with our listeners today an original aromatherapy blend. I actually have it diffusing today. We have titled this one Releasing Worry, because this particular aromatherapy blend supports our ability to embrace life with gratitude and cheer. Who doesn't want to do that?
That sounds like the perfect blend.
Yes, and it smells wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's a really easy recipe. You can find it also on our Pinterest page. If you just go to Pinterest and type in Allison with one L, Sullivan, LCSW, you'll find us, and you'll find this particular pin because it's there on our aromatherapy board. It is 3 drops of Breathe, which is doTERRA's respiratory support blend, 3 drops of tangerine, and 3 drops of lime. So that is your integrative extra for today.
It smells wonderful.
Thanks.
Allison Sullivan and Associates Integrative Mental Health Team is located in beautiful, historic downtown Fredericksburg, Virginia, and at Allison'sIntegrativeHealth.org. New and exciting workshops are available to you that will give you personal attention to meet your needs right where you are on your journey. Sign up for our newsletter to be the first to know when registration opens for workshops like Aromatherapy 101. Here's how you can discover to use aromatherapy to support your health. Did you know that a blend of frankincense, peppermint, and lemongrass supports wisdom, optimism, and it will help you release unhealthy attachments? This is where you can learn how to support your mental, emotional, and physical health with the Essential Oils workshops available to you monthly for no charge. Come meet the team. Schedule your session today for psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, yoga, and massage, and begin restoring yourself in mind, body, and spirit. If you'd like to call, the number is 540-907-0991 and online at Allison'sIntegrativeHealth.org. As Allison always says, self-care will save your life. Let go and lean in.